There's a church in northern Italy where children stop crying during baptisms. Not because they were calm, because they were dead.
I felt like my soul was being hammered down by something. It felt like a weight. I heard footsteps run from the old Sunday school rooms to another as I opened the double door.
That they would rather spend the night in a cemetery than spending the night in a church.
She was at church when she hears this. A disturbing video was taken this last Friday the 20th at the Catholic Church Our Lady of Grace in Greensboro, North Carolina, where a woman named...
Please, I don't have any time for any gossip now. Eh? Yes.
Look at you. Do something with it.
It's just money coming to me easily. Money coming in and needing me. Money coming in repeatedly. Money coming, it's just money coming. It's just money coming to me frequently. Money coming in to be with me. Money coming in secretly. Money coming, it's just money coming. It's just money coming to me always. Money coming in all day. Money coming in all paid. Money coming, it's just money coming. It's just money coming to me frequently. Money coming in to be with me. Money coming in secretly. Money coming, it's just money coming. It's just money coming to me easily. Money coming in and needing.
I'm a minister's daughter, and I can tell you for a fact that demons can dwell in a church. Hey there, welcome back to Pink Hair Ain't Scared. I'm Marge, your spooky drag storyteller. Let's dive in to a true scary story. My dad used to minister at a church in my hometown. The church had 3 buildings: the old church, new church, and gym. To me, the old church always felt off. This part of the building had an upstairs and a downstairs. Downstairs had a kitchen, the fellowship hall, and the room where all the men meet. Upstairs was the old sanctuary, women and children Sunday school classrooms, a nursery and toddler room. The sanctuary smelled like old wood, mildew, and as if something died up there. Up 3 steps beside the baptistry was a maze of classrooms and a very long, dark hallway that was dimly lit up by an exit sign. It was always quiet in the old building. So quiet you could hear footsteps when no one was up there. I've always had a spiritual gift of seeing and feeling things other people couldn't. When I was in the old building, I felt something sinister hover over me, but it never showed itself till one random day. I was cleaning the old sanctuary, preparing it to be turned into the new youth room. I had my earbuds in listening to music when something caught the corner of my eye. A girl in her Sunday dress stood at the entrance of the doorway that led to the 3 steps you'd take to the maze of rooms and long hallway. She pointed up the 3 steps as I called for my dad. My dad didn't answer, so I did what any curious 12-year-old would and went into the hallway. Instantly, a sense of dread washed over me. I felt like my soul was being hammered down by something. It felt like a weight. I heard footsteps run from the old Sunday school rooms to another as I opened the double doors to the hallway. A strong smell of something dying hit me in the face. Anyone would gag at the smell, but the weight I felt on myself overwhelmed my other senses. I felt like I couldn't move, and all I could do was move my eyes, scanning each colored door to the edge of the hallway where the exit sign was. And there it was, in complete darkness, hunched over, picking at itself, as if it was trying to remove something off of its body. It had long, slender fingers, sharp nails. Its face had no expression, just blankly picking. It turned its head ever so slightly. As it turned, its bones cracked. Its deep, sunken red eyes stared back in mine. It said, in its contorted voice, "I've been watching you." Its voice echoed through the hallway as it stood, stretching out of its hunched form. It screamed this contorted language as if it were speaking in tongues. Suddenly, the weight that was keeping me in place let up, and I ran. I tripped down the 3 steps to get to the bigger staircase that led downstairs. I felt my knees and left hand bleed, but I kept running out the door to the parking lot. I looked up at the windows to the classroom and saw the little girl staring down at me. I never spoke of what I witnessed. My parents always saw me as a troubled kid, so I was too scared to ever reach out till I moved out of my parents' house. This isn't the only experience I've had within churches. Ever since then, I kept my studies in my own home, and at 22, I still refuse to step foot into a physical church building. I have scars on my fingers that serve as a reminder that even the places I was taught were safe never are. Do you have a scary story you'd like to send in? My email is down below. Hope to hear from you soon, and stay tuned for another scary story.
There's a church in northern Italy where children stop crying during baptisms. Not because they were calm, because they were dead. Welcome back to Madam Fear. Tonight's story isn't about demons entering a church. It's about something inside the church trying to get out. And according to the Vatican archives, there are some doors that priests are forbidden to open alone. The Church of St. Vespera sat beneath the city streets, hidden under older catacombs, no longer mapped publicly. In 1972, restoration workers discovered a sealed chamber beneath the baptismal hall. Inside were dozens of tiny stone cribs carved directly into the walls. Every crib held bones, infants. But what terrified investigators wasn't the bodies. It was the mouths. Every skull had its jaw wired shut with silver thread. The bishop ordered the chamber sealed immediately. No police report, no public announcement, nothing. But one priest secretly kept journals. And in those journals, he described why the mouths were sewn closed. He claimed the children spoke after death. Not screaming, not crying, praying. At first, it sounded beautiful, until he wrote down what they were praying for. Witnesses describe hearing whispers through the church vents during midnight mass. Tiny voices repeating, "Let us finish being born." Then, the disappearance started. Pregnant women attending the church reported waking up covered in dirt. One claimed she felt fingers moving inside her stomach, after doctors told her the fetus had died weeks earlier. Another woman vanished during confession. They found her rosary wrapped around the neck of the stone baptismal angel downstairs. Pulled so tight, the beads cracked into her skin. The church finally called Rome. An investigator arrived and ordered the underground chamber be filled with concrete. But during the sealing process, workers heard knocking from inside the walls. Small knocks. Hundreds of them. Then came the final report. The priest who kept the journals was found inside the chambers before the concrete pour, kneeling, smiling, his jaw sewn shut with silver thread. And around him, fresh cribs had been carved into the walls, one for every worker in the church. Religious places are supposed to protect us from evil, but maybe that's only because they know exactly where it lives. And if you ever hear children praying beneath the church floor, don't answer them. Because some things aren't asking for salvation. They're asking to be let back in. Want the full nightmare? Find the complete story on YouTube and Spotify. For exclusive late night cases and the darkest files, join me on Patreon. This is Madam Fear. And remember, some stories end when the video does.
You know what's so interesting about this story? First of all, I love her storytelling. I love her stories. But you know what's so interesting? Growing up in Haiti, they would always say, so first of all, we have mostly Catholic churches. Now, if there's like a small church somewhere, it's usually like a Protestant, Baptist, or whatever, but Catholic is one of the main religion, right, that is recognized. Anyways, the other ones are also recognized too. But growing up as a child in Haiti, I used to always hear this saying from like adults, like priest, Mason Lodge. I don't know how to say, the people from the Mason, the Freemasons, Mason Lodge and stuff like that. And I used to always hear, even from like people who go to church too, would say the same thing, that they would rather spend the night in a cemetery than spending the night in a church. And the thing about it is, I always hear horror stories about churches, and not necessarily like during the day, but at nighttime, the dark things that happened and the things that are, that the energies that is trapped in the churches. And people who are literally would go to cemetery, and these are real stories. People would go to cemetery at nighttime, after someone has been buried, to raise their body up, because, whenever like somebody didn't die of natural causes, they die of voodoo. The person who did that to them can basically go into the cemetery the same night that they were born, but usually at midnight, the witching hour, to raise that person up to turn them into a zombie. That's kind of how it works. I mean, that's not kind of, that's exactly how it works. They will come in. That is the reason why sometimes whenever people die and they know, their family know that they die of not natural causes, they would basically do ceremonies in the cemetery right after they're buried to keep them bound to the cemetery for people to not be able to raise them up. Now, or they'll do the whole cremation and everything, but a lot of people cannot afford to do that. So therefore, yeah. But anyways, so imagine at any given time, you can go to the cemetery. So for example, if that was the case and you had to pick where you could spend the night and you spend it in a cemetery, imagine at any given night someone, a warlock, a uga, a goddess, or whoever's doing whatever kind of work, because usually people don't just turn into zombies just because they feel like turning someone into zombie. Well, sometimes, in some cases, yes, but majority of the time it's because somebody has sold that person, because that person did something to someone that was unfair. So therefore they did that in exchange for something else. So they sell you to the person in exchange for usually money or something, but they definitely get something in exchange, like an even exchange kind of thing, right? So imagine you choose the cemetery to go sleep in the cemetery, hypothetically, right? And at any given time, you can run into someone like that, or you can be sleeping outside and you see like champoils jumping, the lugauts and everything, because they fly at nighttime. And usually you'll see it because they have like a trail. They have a trail of fire behind them, or they're just regularly flying. But in Haiti, those are things that are possible. So as a child, hearing someone saying that they would rather spend the night in a cemetery versus a church, it always had me thinking, like, now why would I do that when I can just sleep inside a building, right? A building that is supposed to be so holy, a building that is supposed to be protected, a building that God's presence lives in, right? Instead of me sleeping in a building like that for refuge, I would rather sleep outside of a cemetery. What is going on inside the church? I always wondered that, and even as a kid, because I used to go to church all the time with my family, trust me. In Haiti, they tell you, it's either you are in church or you're in that. There's no in between, right? Because if you are, and that's one thing, that is the reason why I like to talk about the Christian faith and everything, especially here, because in Haiti, it's very hard for you to fake being a real Christian. Now you can pretend as if you're a Christian, but still work on the other side to protect yourself, because you know that if someone who is working, as going to voodoo or working with voodoo and stuff, if you did something or you stole their money or you're a crook and you basically did something to someone, but as a pastor, and in secret and stuff like that, nobody know your situation, you just did it to someone, and someone who is in voodoo can do something to you and unalive you, right? But the thing is, if you are a pastor, or you pretend to be a pastor, but you also go both ways, you choose both sides, it could be because you're more into like voodoo and you use the church, because a lot of people play in the face of like the Christians, stuff like that. Because a lot of time, like, people look at people who go to church and say, you know what, I see a sucker, I'm going to lick it. I'm going to pretend I'm a pastor. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there are good, God-fearing people out here, right? There are people who are so prayerful, not because, it's necessarily because God, but because prayers, you give them power. So when you are someone who is a prayer warrior, because you have this belief so strongly, you give it power. But there are people who pray and they simply say the word and they don't truly believe, right? So when it comes to those kind of things, it's easier for people. That's the kind of Christian I'm talking about, like where you can't pick one side or the other. You have to pick one side or the other, and you have to be firm in what you believe. In Haiti, they have this saying that says, "Upaka un pied en dedans, un pied dehors," right? You cannot be a foot inside and a foot outside at the same time. Nor can you be a foot in the church, but you're not truly planted in the ground and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So therefore, if someone who uses voodoo does something to you, it can easily affect you. It can easily affect you. Like in Haiti, the work that people do in Haiti is so powerful that it can easily affect you. It's very rare that you'll see someone go to a voodoo person in Haiti and they get some work done and they tell them that, oh, that person scammed me out of my money and the work did not work. Because if you are in stuff like this, you know that it has to be the best, because someone who paid you to do a work and it did not work can easily go to someone else to unalive you because you stole their money. You promised to do a work that they were believing that was going to work, and something that was maybe on them, they try to get it off of them, so they pay you to do the work, and you're a charlatan, like you're not real. That person can be unalived. So therefore, their family is going to avenge their life by going to someone who's stronger to try to unalive you, because they know that you're a fraud and you're full of shit, right? So just like someone who is in the church, a pastor could be doing things to the members of his church or his neighbor, because he's not really a pastor. Like, he goes to church, but also he goes to the voodoo man at the same time, right? So, or you could be a pastor, and I'm trying to like show you an example, right? Because my thing is, what is going on in the church that people, warlocks, witches, whatever, people who believe, who are powerful, who literally says whatever it is, and that's, their word is law, basically would say they would rather sleep in a cemetery than a church. Even regular people who are not saying that they're not regular people, but I'm saying like people who are in the church, they would say the same thing. They would rather sleep. But this is only in Haitian churches in Haiti that I hear this, because over here I see people like, go to church and spend all night long in the church. And a lot of times, like in Haiti, they have like Jen and stuff like that, where they spend all night long, but they are in prayer. I'm talking about like 2-3 hours of prayer, so when they're in the church, in the building, and it's like nighttime, whatever the case may be, there's nothing going on, because the prayer is casting away whatever could have happened that night or during that time. But here, it's like people come to church and they stay all night, the church, there's nothing with the church and all that stuff. Church is safe, and because they're not really casting spirits out for real. They're not. In my opinion, when they're talking about casting spirits out of people, catching the Holy Ghost and In Haitian churches, I believe that whenever they cast something out of somebody, it remains in the building. That is the reason why it's more dangerous.
The church warned you about demons your whole life, but they never told you about the ones living inside the church itself. This figure is Abara, a demon from Slavic folk tradition, known specifically as a church demon. Abara doesn't live in forests or graveyards. He dwells in sacred places where sin and religious violations occur. He can't touch a truly righteous church, but where the priests are hypocrites, where the faith is performance, that's exactly where he takes root. Think about that. Even within their own demonology, they knew corruption opened the door. His name comes from an old Slavic root meaning to fight or to create obstacles. He is the force that thrives wherever devotion becomes deception. And yet nobody talks about him. They kept you focused on the devil outside, while Abara was already inside. The church built its power on fear of what's out there. Meanwhile, the real rot was always within. If you want to go deeper, the figures they buried, the knowledge they hid, my private study circle on Telegram is in my bio.
She was at church when she hears this. A disturbing video was taken this last Friday the 20th at the Catholic Church Our Lady of Grace in Greensboro, North Carolina, where a woman named Sandy entered the building when she began to hear multiple demonic screams coming from a man. Scared, she records the haunting scene and prays. But after a few minutes pass, she goes and gets a priest for help. In this 12-minute long video, the man screams in different demonic tones as the priest continues reciting the Bible, and at the end, we can see the man finally begins to regain consciousness. Exorcisms remain one of the least understood rituals in the world, and when multiple voices speak to a single man, it raises a chilling question: what was really inside him?
Want to hear a crazy story? When I was younger, I had a buddy who was in the church. We were both in the church, and he would always serve on the sound ministry. And when I would play on the worship team, I was very young, coming out of witchcraft. I would always see this black figure on a sound booth, which was about 20 feet in the air. And this black figure would always be sitting on the far left of the sound booth with its, I guess, legs hanging over. And yes, you know, there was a lot of dark stuff that happened in this church, particularly. It's still going on. But I told my buddy this, and he's like, there's no way, man. He goes, yeah, I've seen shadows, whatever. He goes, but I'm not buying this. I said, okay. I said, listen, if you see that thing out of the corner of your eye, film it with your phone. And my buddy was like, no, you know, I'm not going to do that. So a couple weeks passed. He said, hey, man, I gotta show you this. We were sitting in the high school cafeteria, and he had an old Razor flip phone. He opened that flip phone up, and he pulled up the video, and he goes, I seen it out of the corner of my eye, and I shifted and filmed like this without actually looking at that figure. And wouldn't you believe, in that phone, I don't have it, obviously he got rid of it because it was a Razor, Motorola, I think, Razor, but that phone glitched. It was a brand new phone. It's when they first came out. It glitched. It like paused, and the screen went black, and it did that fuzzy thing, and it came back on like you see in fake videos, right? But this is before all those days where you could edit videos on an iPhone. iPhones weren't even a thing. This had to be like 2004, maybe 5. Anyway, so with him doing that, he goes, I fully believe you. And he had that video. He would show people that video for years. And that dark figure, anytime it would show up, chaos would erupt around the church, or something would go wrong, or someone would go crazy in the church and create problems. And I used to warn the pastor at the time, hey, I seen that shadow. And he didn't believe me either until my buddy who ran the sound booth and ran the sound in the church showed him that video. And he, anointed and started doing prayers, operate in that balcony area. So God only knows what happened up in that sound booth. There was a room right behind it. So who knows if something really dark happened there. But the reality is it was there. My buddy's seen it. Till this day, he'll still bring it up. Maybe I'll even bring him on here to tell his version. But it was pretty crazy.
And I will tell you, if this demon leaves him, he will come out of this wheelchair. Amen. Come out.
The thing beneath the church appeared again tonight. It keeps imitating children's voices. It cannot enter during prayer, so it waits until the church is empty. I never told anyone what I saw behind the baptism pool. This is the subscribers' true story time. People always say church is the safest place you can be. Maybe for some people that's true. But my father was a pastor, and I learned at a very young age there are things inside the church that simply don't belong there. I'm 29 now. I've never told anyone this story because I know how insane it sounds. Even typing it, my hands are shaking. This happened when I was 8 years old. My father preached at a small county church tucked away behind the line of pine trees. It wasn't a huge building, just white wooden walls, stained glass windows, creaky floors, and an old baptism pool behind the stage. The church was nearly 100 years old, and everybody loved talking about the history, but no one ever talks about what happens when everybody go home. My dad was always staying late on Saturdays to prepare for his sermon. Since my mom worked night shift, I usually tag along with him. I'll bring my coloring books while he practiced preaching from the pulpit. One Saturday evening, rain poured against the window so hard that you could barely hear anything else. The church felt different. Not scary, just quiet. My dad was in his office studying. I wandered into the sanctuary by myself. The lights weren't all on, only the one above the cross. Everything else was swallowed by the shadow. I remember hearing whispering, very soft. At first, I thought people had come into the church. I looked around, nobody. The whisper stopped, then started again, only this time they were coming from behind the stage, where the baptism pool was. I knew I wasn't supposed to be back there, but kids doesn't always make the smartest decisions. I walked up to the steps. Every step cracked louder than the last. The whisper became clearer. They sounded like several people talking at once, except I couldn't understand a single word they were saying. It wasn't anything I've ever heard before. I reached the curtain behind the pulpit. I noticed something strange. The baptism pool door was open. It was never open, ever. My dad kept it locked. I remember peeking around the corner. The room was dark except for one small light above the pool. That's when I saw it. Someone or something. It was standing inside the empty baptism pool. It was way too tall. Its head almost touches the ceiling. Its skin looked black. Not like a person's skin, more like burnt wood after a fire. Its hands hung down almost to its knees. I couldn't see its face, just darkness. And then its head tilted slowly towards me. I'll never forget that movement. It wasn't natural. It tilted so far I thought its neck should have snapped. The whisper stopped instantly. Silent. Then I heard my own voice. Come here. I froze. The thing hadn't spoken. It was my voice, exactly like mine. Again, come here. I knew I wasn't talking. My mouth wasn't moving. Then it laughed, except it laughed using my laugh. I couldn't breathe. Everything, every instant in me told me to run. But I couldn't move. It slowly climbed out the baptism pool. Not by stepping, it crawled. Its elbow bent backwards. Its leg folded the wrong direction. Every movement made wet, crackling sounds. I finally screamed, Dad! The instant I screamed, everything stopped. The movement, the creature, gone. My dad burst through the curtain seconds later. He grabbed me. What happened? I pointed towards the pool. It was right there. He looked. Nothing. Just the empty room. He smiled nervously and said, You probably scared yourself. But then I noticed something. My dad wasn't looking at me anymore. He was staring into the baptism pool. His face turned completely pale. He slowly closed the door, locked it, then took my hands. We're leaving. He didn't even finish preparing his sermon. That never happened. In the truck, he was completely silent. Finally, I asked, Dad, did you see it too? He gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. After what felt like forever, he quietly said, When you grow up, never go behind the curtains alone. That was it. He never explained. Years passed. I tried convincing myself that I imagined everything. Then my father passed away when I was 23. While helping my mom clean out his office, I found an old journal. Inside, one page had only 4 sentences. The thing beneath the church appeared again tonight. It keeps imitating children's voices. It cannot enter during prayer, but it waits until the church is empty. My stomach dropped. He knew. He had seen it, maybe many times. I asked my mom if she'd ever heard of anything about the church. She got quiet. She admitted something she's been hiding from me for my entire life. Years before father became the pastor, there was another pastor who suddenly resigned. No explanation, just left. The one before him also left unexpectedly. An elderly woman from the congregation supposedly warned my father, never stay after sunset if you're alone. He thought it was just small town superstitions until his first week there. Mom wouldn't tell me what happened. She said that Dad made her promise to never repeat it. A few months later, the church was demolished after foundation problem made the building unsafe. They built a brand new church in the same property. I refused to attend the opening service. Curiosity, of course, got the better of me, so a few weeks later, I drove there anyways. The old church was gone. Only the new building remained. Everything looked peaceful, bright, modern, and safe. As I turned to leave, I noticed a little boy standing by the front door. He couldn't have been more than 7 years old. He was staring towards one side of the building, not moving. I walked over and asked if he was okay. Without looking at me, he quietly whispered, "Do you hear someone calling my name?" Every hair in the back of my body stood up because I heard it too. Very faint, coming from beneath the church. A child's voice, softly saying, "Come here." It sounded exactly like his. I got back in my car and drove away. I never returned. People say churches are protected places. I still believe that they can be. But old buildings hold memories. Some hold grief, some hold faith, and some, I believe, hold things that spent decades pretending to be something they are not. If you ever find yourself alone in a church after everyone has gone home and you hear someone calling your name, make sure you see their face before you answer. I hope y'all enjoy this video. Let me know what you think. Have you ever had strange experiences in church? Now, for someone who grew up in Haiti, one thing that I've always heard about churches is that, churches in Haiti, of course, some people believe that it is safer to sleep in a graveyard than to spend time in a church, to sleep in a church. I always wonder why. Churches. So the other day I was out with my girlfriend and she was like, girl, what is going on? It seems like everybody's attention is on you. And then somebody sent me a free drinks. So I had to tell her, I had to pull her aside and say, girl, it's because of my Eau de Root oils that I've been using. So this is my little thing where I mix the oils and keep them in here and then just put it on, on my neck, my heart, and like my wrist. But these are the oils that I've been using, and as you can tell, I am a fan of Eau de Root. I've been using their products for such a long time, and I swear by their products. So this is the attraction oil, and what I do is I like to mix my oils. Hold on. Mix my oil in the little shell, and I'll put them in my thing here, and whenever I'm getting ready to go out, I'll put a little bit on, and I'll completely forget that I have some attraction oil in there until like people start sending me like free drinks or sending my friends free drinks, like all of us at the table, and or people will come up and say, oh my gosh, you smell so amazing, what are you wearing? And I have to say, Eau de Roots have been literally doing her thing. I have to be quite honest, because I don't just use the oils, but I also use their candles as well. Now, I know a lot of people might think that, oh, love and attraction candles are to like, cast a love spell on someone. This video is sponsored by Eau de Root, and you can use the code Jenny10 for 10% off. So when it comes to love candles, you can actually do a love and attraction ritual for like jobs, and or you do it for yourself, so you cast a love and attraction spell on yourself to attract love towards you, so you become a magnet for love, basically, right? Instead of like doing a love spell on someone, which y'all know how I feel about doing love spells on people. But yeah, so it's all about your intentions when you're working with candles, and these candles are so beautiful. And when I tell you, oh, they smell divine, literally they smell so nice, and it's already charged, and all you have to do is basically set your intentions to the candle and tell it what to do. I remember I burned one for a brand deal and I got it.